All right, I will call the meeting to order, the November meeting of the Lee County Board of Education, and Ms. Lang is going to offer our invocation.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, thank you again for this day and for those gathered here. We pray for your continued safety and blessings over our schools. Grant us wisdom and discernment as we consider matters before us. We thank you for this great nation. In these most uncertain of times, we humbly and desperately ask for unity and for peace, compassion, and understanding among all. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. You have the agenda before you. We can adopt it by consent. All right. You have the minutes of the October 12th revised minutes and the October 26th planning meeting. What is the pleasure of the board as it relates to those minutes? Have a motion from Ms. Ford. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Ms. Lane. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Passes 5-0. You have the financial report from September 2020. What's the pleasure of the board as it relates to the financial report?
Move to accept.
Have a motion from Ms. Lang. Is there a second?
A second.
Second from Ms. Van. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Passes 5-0. Dr. Miller, I believe we have a guest tonight for a special presentation.
Yes, sir. Trey Haynes is Director of Transportation for Lee County Schools. He's doing an excellent job leading this critical program. He's instituted a number of changes, and he's working hard to deal with the challenge of staffing, in particular related to drivers. That's really a state and a nationwide issue. So I've asked him to give the board an update tonight.
Good evening. Appreciate the opportunity to come and speak to you a little bit about our department and where we stand. I want to present most of the state of the department, where we stand as far as number of drivers, routes, things like that. But I would like to lead and talk a little bit about something that it's new to the department that we've been able to add in about the last 2 weeks. And that's a GPS program that we've now installed GPS units on each of the buses. It's something we've been working on since really for the majority of last year. We piloted the program and we're able to get it completed just in the last, like I said, in the last 2 weeks. And what it does basically is twofold. And one, it is a monitoring and accountability piece for drivers. We'll be able to see at any point in time, we can see every bus on the screen, where it is in the county, how fast it's going, its exact location in real time. It updates every 5 seconds, so we're getting really real-time information. And it tracks that data and saves that data. So we can look at a driver's safety record. It'll let us know whether or not there were safety infractions or issues during the route, and we can go back and talk to the driver about that if those occur. There's a number of other things that we were able to do from an office standpoint to be able to manage the buses and the routes, throughout the day. From a parent's perspective, and we'll be able to roll this out in the next week to 2 weeks, trying to make sure we got all the kinks worked out of it before we send it out to the masses. But there's a parent app that the parents can download, and they'll be able to basically, they can see the bus on the route. They'll be able to see the estimated time of arrival to their stop, and they can get email alerts letting them know that the bus is close. So when the bus gets to be about between 2 and 5 minutes from their stop, it will get an email alert. So if it's cold outside or something like that, and they can wait to send them out, until when they get the alert. And additionally, we can communicate with just the people who are on that route. So it'll eliminate having to send out the mass, in-touch notifications that we have to send out sometimes. So we're really excited about it. I think that it will be a really good tool for our parents. I know it will be for us in the office. So we're looking forward to getting more people to know about that as we move along. But I do want to talk a little bit about the state of the department. Right now we have 67 bus routes. and that's down from 72 last year. We're transporting right now approximately 3,000 students every day, and so that's 6,000 times the kids being transported to or from school safely, and that's a big undertaking. We've got a lot of good people in the department that are working on that. That's down, it's up from the beginning of the year. It's down from about 4,000 last year. We're getting them every day, so I expect by the end of the year that we may be back at full ridership. We have 2 routes right now that are unassigned. One's being covered with our transportation coordinator, Leticia Wilson. The other is being handled in the morning by a coach and by one of the mechanics in the afternoon. And we have 1 part-time sub-driver with no full-time sub-drivers currently. We do have 2 drivers that are out. We expect and hope to get them back after Christmas, and that will be a big help. And we have 7 new applicants that are in training to become a bus driver. We're really excited about that. It's the biggest class that I think we've had in a very long time, definitely since I've been here. 5 of those are on the agenda tonight to be added to the 2 that we added the last time. So we did add 1 new full-time driver as well, and he's going to do a really good job, I believe. I'm excited about him. So we're moving in the right direction, but it's been somewhat slow, and I'll tell you why the numbers are down. Probably, this is, of course, it is a nationwide driver shortage, and everybody around here is dealing with it, and it's been exacerbated certainly by COVID-19. We had 10 drivers, which equates to 14% of our entire driver staff that left us over the summer, and all but 1 of those, the reasons they cited were COVID-related fears. The other one was a driver who's been going to school and was starting their clinical, so they were going to have to leave us. But so that was a big hit at the beginning of the year, and it's taken some time to try to dig out of that hole. But we are starting to do that. Not enough time to recruit and train. When we get that information that late, and the other part is just the fact that the potential workers are not really there. There are so many people that at that time and even now, if they're drawing unemployment, they're making more money than we can pay them to come to work, and so that makes it very difficult to recruit those new drivers to put into driver training. The other side of it is those that have CDLs. The market right now, they can go just about anywhere and make money, and make a lot more money than what we can afford to pay them here. And that's the situation that all bus shops are going to be dealing with. Again, that's we're not losing people to other. Not people as if they are upset with Lee County or they don't like Lee County. They're going to private companies, or they're just dropping out of the workforce altogether. I did want to give you just kind of a breakdown of what it looks like when we're trying to recruit a first-year driver. This is what we are able to offer them. And a lot of times when they get that first paycheck and they see what it is, that's when many times they're going to decide to hit the door, because they just can't make it. So if we have somebody who starts the very first day of August, the very first day of school, they're making $64 a day, multiplied by 180 days. They're making $960 a month as a gross, take tax and insurance out of that, and they're living off about $500 a month take home. As we get deeper into the year, because we prorated over those 12 months, it just gets more difficult. By the time if we have someone who starts in January, they're grossing about $720 a month. By the time we get to March, they're grossing $500 a month. So they're literally working for the insurance when that time comes. So it's an uphill battle to get someone to come through this training to decide to be a first-year driver and stay here, because of that reason. It's also a very difficult process to become a bus driver. I think it may be easier to be a pilot than it is to be a bus driver sometimes. We have a number of people who have been through and taken that test, and most of them have taken multiple times. It's very difficult. It's not like it was at one point in time. But we have hired 8 new drivers since the beginning of the year. We have lost 6 of those drivers, and the reason I put that is because finances has been the issue as to why these people have left. The other 2 were personnel issues that we had to make, but primarily these are they just see what I have 2 that came from. One that was coming from Putney, and one was coming from Americas, and they make 4 trips. Basically, they have to come to the shop, back home, to the shop, back home. So 4 times they're driving their personal vehicle, and when they see what they're making at the end of the month versus how much they're paying in fuel, it just doesn't make sense for them to stay. So what have we done about it? The first thing we did was we looked at routes and where we could combine routes. The lower ridership, we were able to combine 5 routes, eliminating the need for 5 drivers, and that's been really our saving grace. Is the thing that is really kind of, as we've been able to figure those things out, it's given us a little bit more air to breathe, so to speak. We did set up a plan to try to incentivize teachers and coaches to help us out with some of the routes, so we're getting some help with that. We have one driver, one coach who helps us in the morning, and a coach who helps us in the afternoon. Hosted a job fair, and while the fire marshal didn't have to shut us down for the number of people being there, we did get a few people come through, and we were able to, some of those are on the minutes tonight, and so that's part of the reason why we have the class that we have right now. So it was worth doing. We're working with the staffing people to try to recruit drivers. We've got one driver that works through the staffing people with us, hopeful to get more. We've been working through the Department of Labor, and we've also been advertising through WLB as well as social media. WLB has been good. We've gotten good results from that. Now, not everybody has followed through, but as far as the actual contact with the shop, saying, asking about a job and telling us where they found out about it, we're getting it, from they heard it from WLB, so we're running that through December and hopeful to pick up a few more. So, solutions, and these are, the reason I bring this up is long term. We have an aging staff, and when I looked at them, I want to make sure I wrote this down so I didn't forget, but we have 7 drivers who have over 30 years in. We have 11 drivers who have between 20 and 29 years, and we have about 6 drivers who have 14 to 19 years. And these people, most of them did not come to transportation when they were in their 20s. So these are people who could go out at any time. And my concern is that we may hit a wall. We may hit a point where we have a number of people like we did this past year with COVID, but it may be some other situation, or things may align where we may have a number of drivers leave at one time. So I think we need to start considering what the long-term solutions are. And right off the top, obviously I think that we need to look at making it more attractive from a financial standpoint, so that they will choose our opportunity over other opportunities. That's if we stay with the model that we're under. The other thing that I would like to mention, and this is something I've discussed with Dr. Miller at different times throughout the year, is when I came into the department not knowing anything about transportation, I started looking into what other the counties were doing, and I think a tiered routing system is possibly inevitable. What I mean by that is staggering the start times for our pre-K through 5th grade, and then our 6th grade through 12th grade, a 2-tiered routing system, so that no matter who you start first, whatever we wanted to do, but basically we would have the drivers go out and pick up we started with pre-K first, pre-K through 5. We send the drivers out, they go pick up, drop off, head back out, pick up 6th grade through 12th grade, and bring them back in. It would mean that you'd have to always, probably have to be an hour difference between the start times for the different levels. I know there are problems that come along with that as well. But it does, by its nature, give the drivers a minimum of 2 additional hours, which is increasing their salary by 50% right off the bat. But you're paying that to a fewer number of drivers when that is the case. My estimate is that we could cut the staff by 15 to 20%. So, an example of that being that, so we're in the neighborhood of 70 required drivers to service our routes. If we're looking at that percentage-wise, or that percentage, then if we were to do that, we may cut down to 60 drivers. Those drivers who are not on route anymore, would then become full-time subs, and now you're in a position where you can you can actually, to do some things with your subs, you can bring back field trips, and then of course you have, if depending on what those numbers look like, you know, there are always some that may not really be cutting, what, or not being doing what you exactly want them to do, and you could drop that lower percentage of employees and very possibly recruit from other counties because of the fact that we are paying that much more than everybody else. So that's all I have. I'm open to answer any questions as best I can.
In real dollars, how much are we off the competition?
Not a lot. You know, it's not as if we are. It's not the system is low. It is overall. We don't get a lot of money from the state government. You know, what we get from the government is a small percentage of what our overall budget is, and that's the case in all counties. So
About 12% of the cost of transportation comes from state government.
And you're talking about, we're not that far off from, school to school, system to system. I mean,
Right.
There's not, I mean, you can't really compare to a private CDL type of situation, I would say.
yeah, correct. No way we can get that, you know, to that kind of money. I'll give you an example of a much larger county, you know, Bibb County. They start at $18.75 an hour, I think. We start at just south of $16 an hour. So comparatively between I don't think we're that far off, but I think every system is going to have to deal with this issue probably sooner than later. That's just my opinion, and it's limited in the amount of time that I've been here. But I do believe that we may be more susceptible because of our aging staff and the amount of experience that they have already, where they could go out, where we may need to do something faster than some counties may.
How does the age of the staff compare to other systems? Are we way older, or is that just kind of the trend across the board?
Most everyone is older, and most all the counties are older. I don't think that our problems are unique to, you know, to transportation. It's just that I see where we are with our numbers, and I don't know where everybody else is. I don't know if they may have older people, but do they have that many, do the same number of older people that have been in it for that long, you know, where they may be ready to go out?
Two questions.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, are you done?
No, go ahead.
Your tiered approach, which makes sense on the surface, have you put numbers to it when you increase wear and tear on the bus and fuel? I mean, does it even out, or are you still losing, or?
Yeah, you're gonna lose. I mean,
Lose.
it's not a, you know, I don't think there's any scenario where we can spend the same amount of money and get a different result from a different model.
Well, I'm saying, would it be better to do the tiered approach, where you have more time on the bus, or would it be you raise on $2-3 an hour or more per hour? I mean, those two numbers I would look at to see
Right.
what made more sense if it, as me as a business.
Right.
Not a school system, but.
I agree, and I guess the reason that I consider tiering over just a across the board raise is because it does reduce the number of drivers.
Right. And then, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
I don't, the second question, my mind just went blank, actually. So, go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, no, go ahead, you do first.
I guess real dollars wise, I mean, if we're talking 960, is if somebody starts at the beginning of the year, that's their monthly gross. Are we losing folks because they're going out and finding 1260, or are we? Do we have that much detail as to why we're losing people? I know we can't.
Yeah.
If a over the road truck driver, you know, they got that. I'm not talking about
Right.
that, but
I guess the most recent example I can give is we had two drivers that resigned about 3 or 4 weeks ago. Both of them had been with the department for some period of time, and both of them took jobs with a sanitation company driving a trash truck, and they'll make $800 a week, whereas, you know, it's just, you know, that's. But the others that we do lose, I don't believe they don't always, they're not all going to a long haul trucking company or anything like that. Some of them are going to take a full-time job, you know, because they can get more hours. You know, this is a part-time job, but it lasts all day. You know, because of the schedule structure, it's very difficult for somebody to go out, unless they're gonna work within the system, you know, food service or something like that. It's difficult to find a job where they can work in that middle section of the day and then be back for their route.
And that was my second question. I forgot. So you got coaches that are full-time teachers that are supplementing. What about taking a bus driver? I mean, maintenance or food services, or you know, if you offered them more hours, would that be an incentive from the state? Or you know, what's janitorial services? I mean, something that they don't necessarily have to be done first thing in the morning, last thing. They could go in the middle of the day and do some of those things.
And we have a number that do that. With food service in general, it doesn't. Custodial, not so much. I have been to the schools and talked to custodians and tried to get to them, you know, because the way they work is they have some that work the morning shift and then some work the evening shift. So you would have to have they would have to be basically a part-time driver. They would one drive in the morning, one drive in the evening. So you got to have two to make one. And I really haven't had any takers on that, but we have reached out and tried to push that.
The sub-drivers, do they want to become drivers, or they just want to stay, you know, to where they're working intermittently with people that are out?
The one sub driver we have, he wants to remain a sub driver. But in general, I've not had a sub driver who didn't want to become a full-time driver, because they're going to make more money, and once you get established on a route, it becomes much easier than having to take over someone's route every day and learn that route, you know. So in general, I would say that the subs definitely want to become full-time drivers.
So the ones that are on the agenda tonight, they would be candidates if we sounds like we need a couple of those people to be full-time.
Right. If we were to, I have the one full-time driver on the consent agenda tonight. He will take over one of those two routes that's uncovered. So we'll have one route that is unassigned at that point. So if we got all 7 of those people, then we'd be in a really good position. I don't expect that all 7 will make it, but if we had 3 or 4 that made it, and I'm hopeful that can happen, then absolutely we would have, at least one of them will be a full-time driver, the rest will be full-time substitute drivers.
Okay. We are considering, the board is considering an incentive to offer the school bus drivers an opportunity to bring their children to the Lee County schools without paying a tuition. What effect do you think that might have on the bus drivers?
I think that it's a great, I think that would be a great incentive for them. I think that it's something that nobody else can replicate, because there are not other systems in the area where people just want their kids to go there that live outside of the area. So I think it's, the only thing that I would say is, you know, similar to when the sub pay was raised, you know, that was able to be announced to everyone. And so they were able to get some, you know, some takers. My concern with that is if we're gonna do it, then the only way that it works is, can we, you know, put that out there for everybody to know, for everybody to see. And if that's the case, then I think we could definitely pick up a few drivers.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions?
Do you know of any, or can you think of any other incentives? Or was that, maybe that was that was your idea?
That's
What
the
other
most
thing?
economic.
Huh?
That is the most economic.
Oh, I no doubt. I'm just saying, you work with the drivers every day. I mean, besides money, what else would interest you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think money is going to be the primary incentive. You know, I think we have talked about possibly trying to do some type of incentive for, you know, maybe doing a comp day here or there for drivers who bring other drivers in. You know, if they come in and actually start, you know, the process to become a driver, that we might, you know, I haven't talked to anybody about approving that, but that's just something that we've kind of, you know, tossed about in the office. You know, There are some systems that do sign-on bonuses. I think that's another incentive that I haven't talked with Gary or anybody else about it, but I do think that that's something that we may need to look at.
On your new candidates, what was the average age on them? Any younger?
No, all of them I would say are 50 plus. And that's really the demographic, that really and truly that's.
I mean, what realistically, what do you think your chances of getting any drivers younger than 50 are? Slim to none, or that's just the demographic across the board?
Well, I think we'll get some. It's whether or not we can keep
You might get younger ones with that incentive that might have.
Right, so that would be the beauty of the incentive was
Right.
for that to,
Yeah.
for their kids to remain in school. They would have.
All right, any other questions? We can't do anything in secret around here, Trey, so if we do it, it's gonna be announced. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
You heard a lot of us, so
No matter time, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Great job, too.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right, next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Dr. Miller?
The consent agenda is routine for this time of year. We have 19 recommendations. Please note that we have 2 longtime employees returning to us, Mr. Tim Mears and Mr. Tommy Hawkins. They're both were great employees, and we're excited to welcome them back if the board approves this agenda. The consent agenda also includes 3 resignations, 2 reassignments, 1 correction to a previous agenda, 10 requests to raise funds, 2 overnight or out-of-state field trips. One of those is a trip to Washington DC, which the board approved for 2020. It obviously did not happen that spring break, and this request is made with understanding it'll be based on COVID conditions, whether or not they go through this, and then 1 facility use request.
What is the pleasure of the board?
Move to approve.
Have a motion by Ms. Lane, is there a second?
I'll say that.
Second from Ms. Van, any discussion? I would assume any plans we have on this consent agenda would be subject to COVID.
Yes, sir.
restrictions
Well said.
these
Yes,
days,
sir.
yeah. All right, hearing no discussion, all those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Passes 5-0. Next is the information and reports. Dr. Miller, your report.
Beginning with SPLOST, October was another record month for collections, coming in at $348,504.87, which is the highest total for the month of October since SPLOST collections began in the late 90s. And I would be remiss if I did not express our gratitude to all the people in Lee County who voted in the SPLOST. However they voted, we know they support our schools, and we're grateful for that, and we appreciate the outstanding support we receive. Every district voted in favor of the penny sales tax to benefit students, and the support of the people of Lee County is what makes our school system special, I believe. Food service has some very good news. I think you've heard this already, but I want to share.
I just want to ask a
Oh,
question,
I'm sorry.
Mr. Gary, or you, I don't
Yeah.
know that. Based on these figures, I mean, if they continue to stay upward like that, I mean, how could this benefit us with, the gym and all that stuff we found out? I mean, does it look better?
Yes, it looks.
I mean, obviously it looks better.
Basically, we were wanting to maintain like a $270,000 to be able to make our SPLOST, the current general obligation bonds that we got
Mhm.
retired. So as long as that stays above that, we're gonna have money to put with that.
Okay.
And as long as that stays higher, we won't have to borrow as much into the 5th year on out past year 5. So,
And you might have some excess funds from those for projects potentially.
yes. And if you'll go back to our financial statement and look at the building account, I'm gonna bring this up when we get to the later part, but we got $1.8 million over there. And that's basically for a parking lot and the project that we're talking about later.
Sorry.
Yeah, okay. Food service, the federal government has extended free breakfast and lunch for all students through the end of October. Excuse me, to the end of the school year. Ms. Dunn has had several calls from parents with questions about this. It's not a la carte, so if I come to school and I have my lunch and I really want a chocolate milk, or I want the dessert or a piece of fruit, I cannot get just that. I have to get the whole meal because of the way the regulations are. But Ms. Dunn encourages every student to participate in this. This is wonderful, and we want our students to take advantage of it. And you can also see the numbers for food service and the supporting documents you have there. Under student health services, as of today, we have 8 cases of COVID-19 in the system, all those involving students, and more than 170 in quarantine. This represents an increase in student cases in quarantine over the numbers we published last Friday. And it is of vital importance for people to continue to follow the protocols we have in place and the things recommended by the governor and other health experts, including wearing a mask, washing hands, social distancing, and adhering to the quarantine procedures for those who've been exposed. And as you can see from the school nurse data, the clinics at each school have been busy. We also just completed a flu clinic with our students. We did it for staff first and students as well. That's all I have.
Any questions of Dr. Miller in his reports? Ms. Ford and I were talking earlier, there's not a maintenance report, and I don't remember if there was one in last month's report. Is there a reason for that? Or
He
I know
does.
they're doing maintenance.
He does quarterly.
He does quarterly, okay. I was thinking monthly too, okay. Thank
Didn't
you.
we used to do monthly?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, it just is a good update on what's going on in the school system. And even Trey with the transportation, I mean, that we can figure out maybe the best way to be able to help him. So if we just kind of get an update in transportation and possibly in maintenance.
Yes, ma'am, we can do that.
Okay.
I will say on the facilities, we do have our facility review team meeting this Thursday morning at 9. We have educational leaders from across the state. We'll do the meeting virtually. It's normally done in person. And we are required by the state to have a 5-year facility plan. And they will review our plans and what facilities we currently have and what we're planning. We are very blessed in the sense that our maintenance and custodial staff do an outstanding job taking care of the schools that we have and helping them last a long time, and we're thankful for that. And
Yes.
we expect that to go well this Thursday, and I can share with the board if you care to see the presentation we have. I can share that with you.
Any other questions of Dr. Miller in his reports? All right, we'll move on to discussion and action items. Number 1, Lee County Elementary School is requesting permission to host Camp Invention again. I believe we have seen that in years past.
Yes, sir. It's an outstanding program. Lee Elementary's hosted it for many years. It's well attended, and I recommend the board approve this.
What is the pleasure of the board?
I move we approve Camp Invention.
I have a motion by Ms. Van. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Ms. Lang. Any discussion? All those in favor, let me know by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? Passes 5-0. Next is a list of all, not all, I guess it is all of our Title IX policies. This is just up for first review. Is that first reading? Is that correct, Dr. Miller?
No, sir. This is you have a copy of the memo from the October meeting, which was the first presentation. So it's been,
The other one's first reading.
yes, sir,
Yeah.
30 days since these policies were first presented. And I would like to call on Assistant Superintendent Kevin Dowland to say a few words about the policies, as these are specifically related to the new Title IX regulations, and he's undergone a great deal of training here in the last few days on this particular issue. So, Mr. Dowland.
every year, our attorneys, Hartley and Hawkins, they sponsor a legal issues conference in Athens, and this is the first time that most of us did it virtually, but been for several years. There's always a myriad of topics about, all the different changes and such that happen. It is the first time I have ever seen basically 20 plus hours of legal training focus almost exclusively on Title IX, or on how Title IX is going to affect this aspect, or how this affects Title IX aspect. It is a huge change. It is, it's interesting when the attorneys are saying, we're just not sure how this is going to go until we deal with a couple of cases to see where it's going to go. When the attorneys are saying that, it's problematic. And the other thing about it is, this was put forth by the present Secretary of Education, Betsy DeVos. If the election results stay as they do, that may be a change. There may be a change. Well, there probably will be a change there, and so this may change. But for now, this is what we have. Basically, what they did is you see two policies that are student related and two policies that are employee related. I think the J's are student related, the G's are employee related. And what they had to do in one of each, they had to instill the new procedural guide basically for if you have a Title IX complaint. That is very long, it is very arduous, and as the attorneys told us, if you have a Title IX investigation, it usually will take you around 80 days to do for one investigation. And a lot of that has to do with, you have to give 10 days notice for this, or 15 days notice for that, this, that, and the other. But it is an arduous process, to say the least. A lot of the policies that were pretty much given to us through the GSBA policy manual. Our attorneys pretty much, Hartley, Hawkins, they pretty much write those. So much of what is, well, just about all of what is in there was written by them. Another interesting thing, and I was reading up on this today, especially in the employee part, Title VII has to do with discrimination through employment, EEOC, stuff like that. But with the way that this Title IX procedures, or the way that the new Title IX law is written, they're saying that there's actually kind of an overlap there. And so in schools, you can use the employment part under Title IX, because if even employees don't receive, an employee can be discriminated against via Title IX if it's by gender, so that, it's because the employee cannot take part in their work as an educator. So really complicated, convoluted stuff, but needless to say, if we have Title IX investigations, there will need to be a Title IX coordinator, that would probably me, and then a Title IX investigator, and a Title IX decision maker.
Does the investigator have to be an attorney?
No, ma'am, it does not. But the investigator has to, we thought for a while maybe it would be like like what we do with tribunals. We use assistant principals from each school to do that. Not sure yet. I need to talk to our attorney to see what his thoughts are. It may have to be that one person is, or maybe one or two people are the primary investigators. Real fun part, the coordinator cannot be the decision maker, and the investigator cannot be the decision maker. The coordinator and the investigator could be the same person, but the decision maker can't be. So I told Susan she can be the decision maker.
Where's the training come from for all these different?
Yes, that's a great question, isn't it? That was as soon as that legal issues conference ended. I actually, after the first day, I texted Corey and said, we're going to need some help with this. So I'm going to talk with Corey some and see if we can bring him down here. That would be wonderful. If I need to go up there, I don't care. But, you know, the Legal Issues Conference did provide us with some training. It did provide some acknowledgement, some procedural analysis, some guidance on how to proceed with this. But that's basically for one person. I can be the coordinator right now with the training I received there. That's great. But we need to be able to train investigators and say, this is how you need to go about this. There have to be supportive measures issued for both the victims or the alleged victims and the alleged perpetrators. If this was a student case, here's a really interesting thing. If this was a student case and you felt like one student sexually harassed another student, bad enough to where it became a Title IX investigation, you can't punish the student, the alleged perpetrator, until you've completed the Title IX investigation, which, as I stated before, was 80 days. If a sexual harassment case is bad enough, we've tribunal kids for that before. How do you do that when you have an 80-day investigation to go through? So, a lot of questions, and that's why I said, the attorneys, when your attorneys say, we're just not, Phil Hartley himself said, we're just not sure how this is going to work until we deal with this a few times in cases. And my thoughts were, I hope that we're not the ones you're learning from. So, and I don't think we will be. The good part about it is it does narrow the scope a little bit on what constitutes a Title IX violation. They use 3 terms, and for some reason one of them's drawing a blank right now, but it's pervasive, serious, pervasive, severe, pervasive, and something else. And in previous case law, the word or was used. So now they're saying and. So in other words, it needs to be pretty serious for it to go that route. But, I mean, do you know that before you do the investigation? I don't know. So.
What does the law, wait a minute, I mean, there's a violation of discrimination, and then there's breaking the law on sexual, I mean, there's laws out there.
Yeah, that's right.
So
You get law enforcement involved, so waiting 80 days.
if they feel, I mean, is that, I was at, we're coming
That's
to
a-
training, but I mean, wouldn't that be part of it?
Yeah, that's another really good question, and we talked about that. That, you know, your investigation, the school side investigation, may have to take place while the law does a criminal investigation. And you have to be careful, you know, and what they were saying was, we hope you have a good relationship with your local law enforcement, which we do. But, you know, and Phil even said this, he said, you know, you get some district attorney that says, hey, I don't need you impeding in my criminal investigation, get out of here, you're not gonna be able to do this. So now your 80 days probably gets lengthened, because you have to wait for the law enforcement investigate. Now, I think in our case, we would try to work together, okay? I mean, I think we could if that was the case. We have a really good relationship with our local law enforcement, both city and county. So really feel like we would be fine with that. But there are some cases where, you know, that may cause us to have to wait even longer. But no, the school investigation or the district investigation would be separate from a criminal investigation. So.
My point is, or my concern is, somebody clearly violates, performs an assault on another student. I don't want them in my classroom for 80 more days. Okay.
There would have to be some kind of supportive measures, and that's, I mean, you know, supportive measures offered on both sides. Do we find a way to separate them? Do we change one of their schedules? You know, the problem is it does not need to be. We can't make it punitive. We can't take the alleged perpetrator and say, well, you're going to alternative school. You know, we've done that in the past with cases like that, but. You know, it has to be done, and I cannot tell you how many times Phil used the word tactfully. You know, you're going to have to be very tactful in how you say things. And you also have to make sure that you tell the victim. So, dad's in the room, think about it, your little girl got sexually harassed, groped, whatever, and the Title IX investigator tells you, now you need to understand there is a presumption of innocence. That has to be said to the victim's family. Strange, but okay. But anyway, so long story short, that's what these policies are all about. I wish I could make it clear for you. The fact is, in my mind, it's still not completely clear yet. I feel like I can do something. I feel like I can at least start the process. feel I can go through most of the process, and they said it too. They said, if you end up with a case like this, contact your attorney immediately. And so if we end up with that, that's what I plan to do.
I was gonna ask, did any of the schools discuss outsourcing certain sections of this, like investigation and?
They didn't really talk about that. I mean, you know, you can outsource, I'm sure you could. I mean, you can outsource your tribunals for all that matter. I mean, you can have a hearing officer coming from outside. You know, you could probably do that with the investigator part. You know, the coordinator's gotta be somebody, you know, probably, yeah, inside the system. But, you know, you could probably do that. I think if we're smart about it, we can have a few people that would be the investigators, that would be impartial. You know, you just have to, the whole premise of going into it as an investigator is that you're not going in automatically thinking, he did this, I'm gonna nail it. You're going in to try to find information. And there's also a sharing of evidence with both sides. There is it's really, really involved as far as the investigator and the process that they have to go through as well. So.
Thank you, sir. From Robert's Rules of Order standpoint, I let it start a discussion before we even had a motion on the floor. Is there a motion on this? Sorry.
To what, to move to
We have a
approve it?
motion from Ms. Lang. Is there a second? Ms. Van? All right, any further discussion? Sorry. Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? Passes
I
5-0.
can't say maybe.
Phil said we had to do it.
That's right.
All right, item number 3, request approval to proceed with the Twin Oaks Gym awning project. Dr. Miller, is there anything to present before we request that?
I'm gonna ask Mr. Kelly to say more. Basically, the floor at the exterior doors has experienced water damage because the water backs up when we have a heavy rain. And this project will satisfy that, as well as provide some additional space for our PE classes. They're outdoors a lot, especially in COVID time. And so it'll be very similar to what Lee Elementary has at their school, which is, I think, a great design. So Mr. Kelly can.
I don't know if y'all know Paul Anthony, but Paul worked for Kenny Construction and then actually went to work for JCI when Kenny disbanded, and he was great, and JCI said he was great, and we know from, so, and just, you know, Greg's estimate was $100,000, and I said to Greg, I said, is there a way we could do that in-house? And he said, I don't know what you're talking about. And I said, if we hired Paul Anthony to do it, do you think we could do it in-house? And he said, yeah, that would be the person I would go for. And basically, I got Paul to put together this price with Franklin, and we're paying him for the work he's done. But now, to go on, he estimates it to be $72,000. And that will be like what's on the end of Lee County Elementary School. And you can see the majority of that's coming in site and concrete. He is taking the plans for elementary school and changing the structure, you know, so he knows we need this size because the school's a little different. He's done that plenty of times. But so I have no problem with it being done properly. It's just a matter of, do you want to spend $72,000 to put that? I mean, you could get by with an awning. It would not be cost that much, but this will make it look just like Lee County Elementary.
What is the pleasure of the board?
Maybe just have.
Have a motion by Dr. Newell. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Lang. Is there any discussion?
In addition to the awning, are you going to add drinking fountains out there, just like it is at our school? That's a big deal.
Yes, ma'am. That is because the kids have to re-enter the building
I
now
understand.
to access water. This will provide them with that was a great design feature, and we definitely want to do that.
Okay, I just wondered, because that was important to us to get the water fountains outside.
Yeah.
Is that part of this?
I will have to verify that. I told Franklin that, you know, it's supposed to be just like, and I told Paul just like. I'm assuming, don't make an assumption on that, but I would think our contingency would cover that water if it is not.
And
I don't wanna say it is 100%, I think it is, but I don't know.
I know I've spoken to them about that, being a part of it, because that really is the nice feature. Not only is it a shaded area close by the elementary PE uses the bus area a lot in both schools, and it's a good space, and this would help enhance it for the students and make it even better.
Given you're trying to update, COVID, is there any possibility of putting in a fountain that's a bottle filler? So if you couldn't use the others, they could at least fill up bottles outside?
We could, but I understand those are not easy to get right now. Because of COVID, everybody's, we have a solution that we had planned to do for all of our schools, and we're having a very difficult time getting the parks to implement it. It's not a full bottle filler, it just would have been another fixture that would have allowed that in lieu of drinking, and that's been very difficult to bring to completion because many schools have, I think, adapted that same approach.
All right, any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? Passes 5-0. Next item on the agenda is the strategic plan. As you all know, our strategic plan ends in December, and we have to put a group together and a plan together to do a strategic plan. Dr. Miller?
Yes, sir. Exactly. It ends December 2021, and so it's a lengthy process, but we need to begin this spring, and we wanted to allow the board to ask any questions. And Miss Mary's here, and she's already been doing work, some groundwork with that. She can answer any questions you may have, and I'll do likewise.
All right. Ms. Mann?
Well, basically, this would be with GSBA, and they also utilize GLSSI. So it would be anywhere from a 3 to 6 month process. We spoke with our administrators Friday. They're definitely in favor of moving forward with starting this spring, or I should say early spring, February, March. Basically, there would be a community engagement piece, and we can decide whether we want to do a focus group or if we want to make it even a little bit more broad than that. And then from there, there's a planning day that is half community members, half staff members, and GSBA would facilitate that process where after the engagement review is done and that is presented, that planning committee would actually come up with the overarching goals, if you will, for the plan for the next 5 years. And that can take anywhere from 1 to 2 days, just depending on, what all of you get kind of bogged down in some of that process. After that point, there would be an action team, which would be just school people, anywhere from 6 to 12 people. We kind of talked about it being our instructional supervisors, which is actually the assistant principal at most of the schools, because those individuals are the ones who work with the school improvement plans in conjunction with their principals, but they help determine those action steps for the goals. And then they would be working with their school improvement plans as well. So that actual planning would be done with GLSSI, with a consultant from there. So it takes a little while, obviously, for them to gather all the information, get it back to us. On the day that they would meet with the planning committees, when they would actually come and meet with you all and get your input as well, go through a process with you to find out what overarching needs you would see or needs you feel like we have. A SWOT analysis is done with everybody, including those who do not come to a meeting. It would be open to the community. So it's a very similar process to what we've gone through the last 2 times. 10 years ago, I believe we had GSBA come. They did a full-on community engagement piece. 5 years ago when we did this, or the last one, Ms. Melvin actually was our consultant. that she utilized some of the same training materials. So it's very similar. I think they've done a very good job with aligning it with the school improvement processes we already do, because they're utilizing Melissa. So for that reason, I think our folks will be second nature to them. So.
And we would, in the process, be able to use Assembly so that when the board meets, it'll be driven by the goals of the next strategic plan, and that'll be, that feature will be.
I was gonna ask about that, if
Yes.
we're gonna use the GSBA module for assembly for strategic
Yes.
planning, because it'll show up with, if I remember correctly, green, yellow, and red indicators as to where we are in our goal process, and then it'll show how everything aligns with the strategic plan going forward.
When we did this 5 years ago, I can't really remember why. At the time, I think we were not using Assembly.
Right.
So we decided just to have our own balanced scorecard that kind of mimicked a little bit, but it's so much easier, I think, if you were to use Assembly once you get your strategic plan built, to progress monitor how you're doing on those goals and tie it to your actions and those types of things. So yes, if that's the way you all would like to go, you can do that and tie it to whatever you need to tie it to. I think it's a pretty, I don't know, I probably shouldn't say this. Is it an easy platform? I've never entered anything into it, but I feel like we can learn that.
Yeah.
I've used it from the GSBA board and the EBS board, and it's easy on the user's end. I don't know how,
Unless you get
what
locked
it
out.
is on the implementation part.
What
on the
if it's hard
input
on
side.
Jennifer?
Would it be hard on you?
It'd be a system-wide effort to make sure it all coordinated down there.
We can do it.
Any questions of Dr. Miller and Ms. Manley?
On all our training, or that conference we went to last year, they expressed how important that phase one in that blue box was. Bringing the community in together for it. And I know we have a pretty big county. I don't know if we could get it all at one location, but I mean, there were, you know, I want to make sure it's out there to everybody, not just handpick 50 to 200 people that we handpick our parents. I'd like to have as many people or parents involved as we could. Only because based on GSBA, that they said that was very pivotal.
We had, I believe it was about, like I said,
Not this last time, but the time before, we did the full-on community engagement piece, and I think we had with school staff that came somewhere in the neighborhood of about 100.
So we did.
Maybe 90, which at first I really thought, you know, maybe that wasn't a large number for our number of students and parents, but when I told Lanita that I talked to the other day, she said, "Oh no, that's very good." I said, "Okay."
I'd say that.
And then in addition to that, there would be an online survey that would be pushed out, and I think that's gonna be the biggest thing, is to get that message out, get the word out, and make sure everybody feels like they have a voice. And I think that's what they are very good at doing, because they're also unbiased.
Well, and this is not a challenge by any far stretch of the imagination, but I think your point is well taken, and we do have good participation relative to others. But I'm not blind to the fact that we had 34% of our voters say no to our SPLOST. And I would like to know why. Not to say you're wrong, but to know what they're thinking, so that we can address those things in this strategic plan. I know we're never gonna get 100%, that's not my goal. But I would like to hear as much of that individually as well as in this group, how we can, better that. Because maybe I am biased, but I have to believe there was some misinformation or some miscommunication as to our plans for the future or the way we do things that resulted in that. And I must say it bothered me, but that's just me.
And I went to the same workshop as Trey did, and it was an exceptional school system, and the superintendent was brand new and pulled the community together, but the board members were directly involved. They were on the committees separately, not all, everybody on one committee, but they, and it was tremendously engaging to go and listen to how they pulled it all together and the number of people that really supported that effort.
I just think there's gonna be some challenges. I mean, because I think he said they tried to do it on a couple Saturdays or something, and I mean, that's challenge one. And then, you know, I mean, I would just like to make sure we really try and get that out there and try and, because I agree with Frank. I don't want to hear just what we're doing good. I want to hear what they think we're doing bad. I mean, and why. I mean, I totally agree. That's what I want to hear. To me, that's more important than what we're doing good.
I would be surprised if it doesn't come out in the community section, an opportunity for input, more engagement. Now, let's put it out there. I mean, the community hasn't engaged when opportunities have been presented, and I hope we can change that to where we get more engagement and hear, you know, more open discussion about what their wants and desires are for our system.
But when we went back to the room back there and we're reading all these posters while we're sitting there, you know, it says communication on every single one of them, you know, so somehow, you know, I don't know exactly how to bridge that. I don't know who all you could involve. And this is possibly changing the subject, but maybe not too drastically. I'm concerned about the pre-K program. And I don't know, you know, and I'm sure that all of us would like to go to a different church on Sunday and, you know, let people know that we have a pre-K and, you know, they can bring their children, because somehow we end up with a lot of kids in kindergarten and not so many, and it focuses back on the communication. I don't mean to point at you.
It's fun.
I don't know, I just started doing that.
That's fine.
But, you know, but I am concerned because, you know, I do feel like, you know, people would like to have a voice. They would like to participate, but we've got to somehow find a way to do that. And we could certainly go back to that group, that, you know, that group that was so successful and find out some of the things that they did, but it was successful.
I think if GSBA
is going to do this, they'll have all of that. They will work that. If they're the ones who had this thing that you just went to. And I remember 10 years ago, they did include the board. And they did include, and we had the meeting with everybody, and they did the SWOT, the strengths, weaknesses, and all that. So we'll have that. I think if GSBA does this.
Yeah, but I think some of that communication will be on us as far as the community, and GSB will help give best practices. But I think Ms. Ward's right. We need to get as much of it out there, and once we fill this new position that we've got, that'll certainly help aid in keeping that information out there. I'm excited about the process. I know it will be some extra work on everybody's part and ours as a board if we do it right, but I think the results will be something that we can all hang on to. And quite frankly, well, I won't say that. I'll save that conversation for later.
Well, I'll say the presentation Ms. Ford was talking about, I was in also, and one of the board members actually presented. It wasn't just the assistant superintendent for instruction or planning. It was a large system. It involved school leader, district leader, and a board member, and it was very impressive. What the job they did, it was very thorough. And, you know, I believe we can do that well as well. And I think given the opportunity, our parents will respond, and our community members. And as you pointed to, we don't need just parents. We need people who are part of the community to share their input, because really this is their school system. We're the stewards, and we want to provide for them what they believe we need to continue to grow and be successful. So we're excited too about the partnership between GSBA and GLSI, because all of our leaders have been through GLSI training. So that's going to, I think, be a natural for us to fit that. And I think that piece of bringing the strategic plan into the board meetings, where every time we talk, these list of items are going to be laid out against what are our goals as a school system, as a community for our children. So I think that'll be wonderful.
It may change some of the way we've been doing things. I mean, it's unknowing to us, it may not align with our strategic plan. And once that document is put in place, we follow the strategic plan or the goals set in the strategic plan. So we got to make sure we get it right.
Has GSBA mentioned how this might be altered in COVID? If that the restrictions don't ease or if it clamps back down?
So that's one of the reasons, when I was talking to Lenita, she said that
That right now, this fall, they are kind of suspended what they were doing with some of the counties. So this is really the earliest we can start. And it may be that we are going to have more of a focus group moment if some people are not, depending on where we are with COVID, and people don't feel comfortable coming. But that's also where, having that, promoting it, getting the online piece out there, and then there's some other ways in the schools that we can do some things, through our principals and our instructional supervisors, working with their school councils, their PTOs, and meeting with them and getting that feedback as well. So they will take all of that and put it together to give us a report on the community engagement piece. And talking about board member involvement, it's not just the presentation. When that planning meeting takes place, you know, one of the things that Lenita said was that 1 to 2 board members could be a part of that planning process as well. So I think we did that last time as well. But that's another way you can make sure that, you know, everybody's getting involved in addition to our community leaders. So, and that's something too, if you have people in mind, you know, as we start the process, feel free to reach out to me, and, you know, I may not know everybody that I should, but people that we can engage in that process as well.
The big thing too is to try to pull in some of the industry leaders here to see what they're looking for, what their needs are.
Yeah, I think they expressed that, business leaders, and pretty important.
I'm not so sure that may not be an opportunity to pull
Back some of the former students that are out in the colleges maybe, and that might be the time to see what they struggle with and what they think they could use some more of.
All right. Any other discussion? There's no
I'd
action.
like to say,
Yes, sir.
Paul, I sent a text to Paul. Plumbing's not in his scope, but Franklin's got that taken care of.
Okay, great. That's good to know. Any other discussion on the strategic plan? All right, last item is the first presentation. I knew there was a first presentation, reading all those policies. Sorry, I got a little glassy-eyed reading all those
You
policies.
get cross-eyed reading them.
Yeah. All right, first presentation of JBC school admissions. Dr. Miller, there are some points in there I think you want to bring to our attention.
Yes, sir. Just the first draft of an updated residency policy. This draft is based on our current policy. It also borrows from another district residency policy. It includes the proposed changes that allow pre-K students who are non-residents to attend, which is allowed under state guidelines for pre-K, but our policy does not allow that currently. And then also the proposal we discussed earlier, or Mr. Haynes discussed, about allowing non-resident tuition to be waived for bus drivers who come to our system to drive. And then, you know, this is just a draft. We're gathering input. You know, if there's something the board wants to discuss, I know we've talked about many things over the years, and we can certainly, this will be the good time to bring those to light. So,
Okay, any questions specific to this policy right now?
I would have a question on pre-K. Why would we want to, you know, I always look at kindergarten.
Yes, ma'am.
And then I think there were 4 last year.
yes, ma'am.
And while, you know, some parents might go to Albany and put them in a pre-K and a daycare facility, you know, closer to their work, I'm not sure, why are we doing this?
Just to increase our numbers, our enrollment's down by more than 1 class, and it would allow us to, in the event that were to continue or to happen again, it would help us boost our numbers for pre-K.
What are we doing? How are we getting this information out? And if we did, would we need to tell parents that, you know, right now we have space for 240 or what is it?
It's
200?
260.
260?
Yes, ma'am.
We have space for 260 children, so that they would know exactly, and that they could, they could bring their kids. If students are allowed to come from out of county, could someone from in county bump them? Would that be something that we would consider?
Well, I would think that it would be in a situation like we're in now, where there's plenty of room, where we're not one or two kids away from being full, and we have ample space so that we could allow students from out. We have a situation now where somebody works in our county, resides in another, they're commuting every day, and they've asked, can I bring my child to your pre-K? And the state guidelines from the Department of Early Care and Learning allow that, but our policy on residency does not. So I'm not sure the legal, where that falls legally. I don't know if that's a procedure from the state. It is in their policies. But this would open that door in those situations. Or perhaps I plan to move to Lee County, but I have a pre-K child. There could be scenarios that we could potentially allow the student without taking space away from a Lee County resident.
And I could understand if someone worked in the county that they could bring, I understand that. I think I understand it, but anyway, I just want to make sure, because we've got one pre-K class that we need 20 students for, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and then we've got 2 classrooms, but the state hasn't approved it because we don't have students on a waiting list.
Well, the state did not approve any new classes this year because of the budget downturn in
okay.
COVID. So that really, we were anticipating if a normal year, yes, we would have probably been successful in our application for an additional classroom. But with COVID, that turned that in. And you make a good point. You may want to just qualify that non-resident, like if you could say if a person is working or has reason to be, for the non-resident situation. I know from personal experience, when my oldest, who's now a college graduate, when he was pre-K age, you could not bring students to our pre-K unless you resided in Lee County. I don't know why it was at that time, but it was. And so he had to attend in another community, and then the next year he came to kindergarten here. So, because he was we were.
And that almost fell along with our promotion policy of, not promotion, but the admittance policy. That was kind of like for all students. You had to be here. It wasn't just pre-K. It was for all students. I guess, my concern is we just want to make sure, if at all possible, we allow every student that is eligible in Lee County to attend, and and then consider, and I don't know, I'm not trying to put parameters on it at this time, but I think I am trying to put parameters on it at this time.
Well, that's what this is for.
Ms. Ford, I recommend that you waive this policy for this year, because the chance we may lose funding for those 20 kids, and that means we will be funding that teacher and that para locally if there's not a whole ordinance, because what's happened is the 4-year-old parents are not bringing their kids to COVID schools this year. They kept them out another year. So this is a significant year, and if the state cuts our funding, that's our only mechanism right now that we see is to get those kids in those classrooms, is to bring them from another county.
Will it go into effect immediately when we pass this, if we do it next month?
Yes, ma'am. If we did, and really, if this one particular situation, I wouldn't have a problem with them coming on if the board was okay with it. Miss Brim is fine with it. We just need to.
This is in scenarios where we have the space and we need to fill it in order to justify what we've already got. And given the, well, I read it, given the space available, and really, that would be at your discretion based upon what, you know, and direction we have provided. I mean, of course, our preference and our focus, I say preference, our focus is on the residents of Lee County. But if we have some available spots and it helps us maintain the class and helps us get future, would those students being registered on a waiting list, non-residents, be justification for additional classes in the future?
I do not know that. I would have to ask that, but I don't see how it could hurt us.
Right.
To do that, and perhaps that would open the door. You know, we pre-K is free, and there are many child care institutions in our area that provide that as well. And sometimes parents just elect, you know, they have their 2-year-old there. I'm just gonna leave my 4-year-old until he's ready to go to school in Lee County.
That's the
And,
people that are on my side of the county, most of them are working in Albany, a lot of it's a matter of convenience.
Right.
Until they have to start making
Right.
the drive here.
Right, and so that, you know, might explain a little bit of the, Ms. Ford makes a good point, you know, we have 260 slots, but we have 500 or thereabout kindergartners every year, so where are those other 240 children? And that's something certainly we can work on. And this, the board needs to take no action tonight, but I welcome any input you have as we think through this, as we think about residency. I know we can't address every scenario with a policy because there's too many nuances, too many issues, but you know, I would appreciate the board's input on this as we move forward. And we'll gather and we'll also work with our attorneys to make sure we're doing what we need to do.
Okay. Any further questions?
If they came and they were out of county, are we talking about them paying tuition?
Yes, ma'am.
The $90 or
It's $10 a day.
$10 a day?
Yes, ma'am, about.
Okay, so about
That's
$40.
cheap. We can't raise it up one.
Yeah, actually, we cannot. That's state law that, you know, we charge non-resident tuition for our employees in the system, and what that money does, it basically offsets the local costs we have because the state funding does not cover the entire cost of educating a child, and so that kind of helps us fill that gap with the funding, because we have about 60 non-resident students whose parents work in our system, and that, you know, if you think of it, I always think of things in terms of teacher positions. That's probably about 3 teacher positions that have additional above what we earn for the residents of this county. So, am I explaining that right here? Yeah.
But
So-
if I'm hearing correctly, this policy obviously needs to be in line with what the law is, because our policies currently, you're saying, may be violating the law. Like if they're entitled to come here, we can't make a policy as they can.
It's a regulation, not a law.
Regulation,
Right,
well.
right.
that's-
Yeah, I don't know that it's, I don't think anybody would take us to court over this, but it, you know, it might be something that, maybe we say, one of you said earlier, given the superintendent the latitude or a designee to look on a case-by-case basis. I know this is not a new issue. I found a 1985 copy of the Leesburg Ledger. Somebody found it in our papers this past week, and I was looking at it, and they were discussing, the board was, a proposal for teachers living in Doherty County working in Lee to bring their children with them to school in Lee County. And it was a very interesting article to read. And this is not a new thing, but it's something we certainly think about. I believe, as I said, I welcome your input.
I don't want to lose a teaching position because we need pre-K.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, it is a feeder program for the primary schools, and, the teachers can work together and make sure that, that the foundation is good going into the schools. So it's intensely important to me that we keep the teaching position. But basically, if I understand everything that's been said, if we got more students than that one classroom, then we would have to apply for additional classrooms through the state. And let's say that everything is gonna go through next year, but we have to apply for the 2 classrooms that were vacated as a result of moving the lunchroom over to Building D.
Yes, ma'am. Remember, we were gonna apply for an additional class this year, which would have been an inclusion class, a pre-K inclusion, which is a little bit different number and a little different model too, because it would require 2 teaching positions and 1 paraprofessional. And we had planned on that, but with COVID, the decal just said there are not gonna be any classes. And of course, all school systems, across, as I understand, across the state are seeing a downturn in both pre-K and kindergarten enrollment. And that's, somebody mentioned earlier because of, I think, Trey or somebody mentioned the concern about COVID. And we think that's what that is. We'll see. That's it. We want our pre-K program, we want it to grow because the kids who go to pre-K and then go to kindergarten are much better prepared. Because they have been in a class setting, they've got, it's just a real head start for kids. And that's not to, it helps, it makes a big difference.
Absolutely.
And so, this is, you're very right to want us to make that program grow and thrive.
Any other discussion? All right. No action needed on that item, and there's no other items on our agenda. I will declare us adjourned.